Test. Yeah. Test? Yeah.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here, either in person or on Zoom, and for participating in this very important process. This is an environmental scoping meeting for the Surfliner Inn project. Let me switch slides here real quick. There we go. Before we get started, I'm going to explain who we are, why we're here, and how this meeting will be conducted. I know many of you are used to a hearing body type of meeting, but environmental scoping meeting is just a little bit different. So my name is Mindy Fogg, and I'm a planner with the city's Community Development Department. And here with me, the director of our department, Nick Bobroff. And helping us conduct this meeting and gather your input is Brian Ali, who is our consultant from Environmental Science Associates, or ESA. And Ruta Thomas with ESA is also participating on Zoom and taking notes. And helping us with the Zoom over there is another planner here, Brett McNulty. And a big part of what we do here, we process development applications such as the one submitted for the Surfliner Inn project. In that process, we prepare environmental analysis and gather public input before a development project is presented to decision makers. And to be extra clear, we are not decision makers, nor are we the developer. So our job is to be impartial analysts that gather and summarize information and make that information available to the public and to the hearing bodies. And so tonight is the first step in preparing the Environmental Impact Report, or EIR as we call it, for this project. So the primary purpose tonight is to hear from you all, if you're willing to speak. In particular, we would really prefer to hear about environmental concerns that you might have that we should evaluate, and or project alternatives that would alleviate environmental impacts. So that's the kind of input that we would like to get, and we have a brief presentation, and then we will turn it over to you guys and ask for your input. As a little heads up, what we'll do to call people up to speak is we'll first ask if there's anyone either here or on Zoom whose comments would be stated in a minute or less. And so if you have any time constraints and want to give a quick comment, we'll get you squared away. But then depending on how many people we have, we'll then likely take 3-minute speakers. And if anybody wants to go more than 3 minutes, then we want to make time for you too. We just want to get to everybody. We don't want people to have to rush home and not be able to get their comment in. Just by a quick show of hands, how many of you that are here would like to speak tonight? Okay, good. Wonderful. Got a good group. Please be courteous and respectful throughout this meeting. I know at the ARB meeting, everybody it was very civil, so we really appreciate that. Whether you agree or disagree with a speaker, please show respect and allow them to speak freely without interruption. And then please also refrain from cheering and applauding. And if you do provide comments, please direct them to me and Brian up here. We're the ones gathering your comments and making sure it ends up in the EIR. And please don't direct them to anyone in the audience. Also, this meeting is being recorded, and so if you miss any of it, it will be available on our city YouTube channel, and there will be a link to that YouTube on our Hot Topics page for the Surfliner project. So now on to our main presentation. It'll include a real brief project description and then the CEQA or environmental review process, and then how to comment and also get your questions answered. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with the project and where it is, but just allow me a quick minute here to give a brief overview. It is proposed to be located at 499 Linden Avenue on the 2 properties outlined here in blue that straddle the railroad tracks. It includes a 36-room hotel with a manager's unit, a visitor center, a cafe, and a rooftop lounge and pool area. And the hotel building would be located on the eastern half of parking lot 3, while the western remaining half would be reconfigured and would support 46 spaces. And then the new parking lot would be constructed just south of the railroad line and would become parking lot number 4. It would support 93 spaces, coastal trail improvements, and restrooms to replace the ones that are currently on lot 3. And then this slide shows the project setting, with this being Linden Ave and the railroad line here. And here's a little bit zoomed in view here. This is proposed parking lot 4. This is the Spot Burger with its parking lot here. And then here's the hotel building footprint, and the reconfigured lot 3 next to it, and then the community garden next to that. And I know you guys have seen all this, the elevations, the rendering from Linden, and another rendering off of Linden, and all of the detailed site plans are on the Surfliner Hot Topics webpage, along with landscape plans. So if you need to take a closer look, please do go on there. I forgot to mention that I also have my business cards out, so if you do have follow-up questions about anything after tonight, please do contact me. You can call or email me or make an appointment to come and meet with me. And then we also have copies of the notice of preparation available, and that also has information. But with that, I'm going to let Brian now explain the CEQA process, or California Environmental Quality Act.
Thank you, Mindy. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. So this slide shows the purpose of CEQA, like Mindy mentioned, the California Environmental Quality Act. I'll read out loud slowly. The purpose of CEQA is to inform decision makers and the public of a project's potential environmental effects. CEQA is meant to increase understanding of and participation in the environmental review process. CEQA discloses any potential impacts on the environment, and CEQA identifies ways to avoid or reduce potential environmental impacts through either mitigation measures or alternatives. The objectives for CEQA is to provide information on the EIR process, as well as to identify environmental issues for analysis to be prepared in the EIR. CEQA also solicits community input on environmental issues or alternatives to be studied and evaluated within the EIR. As Mindy mentioned earlier, the scoping meeting is for community input on what should be studied in the EIR. And we're currently at the beginning of the environmental review process. This slide shows the various steps of CEQA in the EIR process. And you can see on this slide that there's 4 stages that can provide public input, where we want to hear from the public. The first one, which is prepare and distribute the notice of preparation, that's a 30-day review period. And that began on May 29th and will conclude on June 27th at 5 p.m. And the purpose of the NOP was to advise the public and responsible agencies that an EIR is being prepared and to provide opportunity for public comments. Currently, we are here at the scoping meeting. That's where we find ourselves here tonight. The next step, after conclusion of the scoping meeting, we're going to prepare a draft EIR. And with your comments tonight, we're hoping to use those and to inform the EIR and to help define the scope. After we prepare the draft EIR, we'll prepare a notice of draft EIR availability, which will then kick off the 45-day public review period. And this is another step in the process where we like to have public input. After the 45-day comes to an end, we'll begin preparing the final EIR, which will include all the public comments and our responses to the public comments. After the final EIR is prepared, the review will happen by responsible commenting agencies, and then that will kick off the public hearings, which will be the Planning Commission hearing, which is another step in the process where we like to have public input. At that point, the city will make their decision. The Planning Commission will either approve or don't approve and certify the EIR, and then from there, we will file a notice of determination. This slide, so the next couple slides, we're going to share with you the various topics to be included within the EIR. Oh, sorry. The 4 topics up here will be considered, but we're anticipating to have a less than significant impact to the environment. And that would be ag and forestry resources, mineral resources, population and housing, and wildfire. The next slide shows the EIR topics of which we'll have a full evaluation within the EIR. There's several of them, but I keep forgetting to change slides. I'll go through each of these real briefly, just kind of share with you the topics within each one that will be evaluated within the EIR. The first one being aesthetics. We'll be addressing scenic vistas, scenic resources, visual character, public views, light and glare. Air quality, we'll be looking at the potential pollutant concentrations, odors, and the consistency with applicable air quality plans. Biological resources, we will evaluate biospecies, riparian habitat, natural sensitive communities, as well as trees. Within cultural resources, we'll be evaluating both historic resources and archaeological resources. Within the EIR, we'll include energy resources during both public construction, or project construction, and project operations. Under geology and soils, we'll evaluate faults, seismic ground shaking, liquefaction, soil erosion, expansive soils, and as well as paleontological resources. We'll also include greenhouse gases. We'll look at routine transport, use, and disposal of hazardous materials, as well as emergency response plans and evacuation plans. Under hydrology and water quality, we'll look at water quality standards, waste discharge requirements, surface and groundwater quality, groundwater recharge, groundwater management, drainage, erosion, and surface runoff. The EIR will evaluate land use planning and the consistency with applicable land use plans and policies. The EIR will cover noise, both construction noise as well as project operation noise, as well as vibration. The EIR will cover any potential impacts for public services, that would be fire, police, schools, parks, and library. Under recreation, we'll be looking at any potential impacts to neighborhood and regional parks, as well as any other recreational facilities. Under the transportation topic, the EIR will evaluate consistency with applicable programs, plans, ordinances, and policies which address the circulation system, including transit, roadway, bicycle, and pedestrian facilities. We'll look at potential hazards related to transportation, as well as emergency access. The EIR scope will include tribal cultural resources. And then lastly, under the EIR will include utilities and service systems. This is water, wastewater, solid waste, stormwater, drainage, and natural gas. And the final slide is how to submit comments, which is tonight verbally in person or virtually through the Zoom teleconference. You can email Mindy. Mindy's email is up on the screen. You can also mail your comments to the Community Development Department for the city. And we're accepting comments through 5 p.m. on Friday, June 27th.
Great, thank you, Brian. And as I mentioned earlier, if you need this information, it's on my card or in the NOP itself. And so like I promised, we were very quick and brief here. We are going to now go to what we're really here for, which is to hear from you all. Again, we're not deciding on the project, but we do want your input on what should be in the EIR and everything that those topic areas that Brian just mentioned. Those are listed in the NOP. But if there's something that we missed, if there's something that affects the environment that you didn't hear him mention, that's what we want to hear from you about. So I'm going to switch to our focus slide, and then I want to ask, this is why I gave you all a heads up, does anybody have comments tonight that would be a minute or less, and they want to get their comments in quickly, and that's it? Okay, all right. In the front. You're up first.
And actually, if a couple of the other folks who had, sub-minute comments, if you want to kind of get in line, we can try to keep you moving and cycle through you as efficiently as possible.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name's Terry Wheeler Scrivener. I came to Carpinteria in 1948 and have had family live on 3rd Street until today. I'm concerned about the impact of potential parking lot 4. It makes me uncomfortable to think that people will be sleeping and graffitiing, et cetera, and the danger of trying to get in and out of the one egress at, 10 feet from the railroad. That's it.
Thank you, Terry.
Hi, everybody. My name is Maria. My married name is Paez, and I keep it because it's shorter. And what I really want to say is all these pronouncements of interventions of modernization that people wish to take place are there to ruin Carpinteria. Carpinteria is a beautiful area, and I knew that before I came here to live this time, but just to look at it verifies the fact that people want to destroy something beautiful. That's just the way it is. I'll never be able to understand that. But that needs to be stopped because that's going on all over the world. And all these hints of war that you see on a television set, if you watch CNN, will give you a really good idea that people are apt to destroy. Why I simply don't understand that. Why would anybody want to destroy a good, beautiful thing? And that's what's going to happen if this building is allowed to go through. So I think it's very important that it be stopped. By how many people it takes to stop it. I don't look forward to that at all. And I'm going to add this, I already noticed on the side of the Spot Hamburger place, S-P-O-T on the corner, somebody already paved a sidewalk. It's in concrete, right? I thought of that. So it's being sneaked in. And a group needs to put their foot down because people do not decide otherwise. When they have something in mind, this is what I'm going to do, that's what they do. They're very catty. So do not give up on the fact that you're negative on this aspect. Carpinteria is very, very beautiful. I'm not from basically Carpinteria, but we're from the capital. I can tell you that this is beautiful here.
Thank you so much, Maria.
My name is Cornelia Hutchings, and I live on 3rd Street. I've been here since 2002. I'm worried about the water. Where are you going to get the water for 36 rooms, a swimming pool, and all the other things, and the laundry and everything else? Where are you going to get the water? I haven't seen a lot of rain. I've lost a lot of my plants that were drought resistant because they haven't had enough water. So I'd like an answer to that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Sly?
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Annie Sly. The last section of the CEQA Guidelines Appendix G checklist is mandatory findings of significance. It contains this question, this is a quote, "Does the project have impacts that are individually limited but cumulatively considerable?" Cumulatively considerable means that the incremental effects of a project are considerable when viewed in connection with the effects of past projects, the effects of other current projects, and the effects of probable future projects. That's the end of the quote. Constructing both the Surfliner Inn and parking lot number 4 will have a significant effect on the environment. Some of these environmental impacts are related to the size and scale of the hotel, leading to a loss of scenic vistas, loss of our small beach town charm, conflict with land use policy, safety issues, flooding issues, parking issues, congestion, tree removal, and noise, to name a few. Perhaps these environmental impacts, taken individually, could be dismissed as tolerable, but they become significant when considered together and combined with other projects in town. A major past project is Linden Square. Current projects that are in the works are the Palms, the Nugget, and the mixed-use development on Carp Avenue, where the rental yard used to be. A future project is the new hotel slated for Villa Real. Also, the land that's being decommissioned by Chevron that will probably be developed as well. These should be considered when deciding if impacts that seem limited become considerable when viewed in this context. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask for our attendees on Zoom if any of them have a comment, and I'll come back to the people here too, but if anyone on Zoom has a comment, that would be a minute or less to raise their hand. And back to the audience here while they're raising their hands. Does anybody else have a quick comment, minute or less? Yes, come on up.
Michael Stevens. I lived on Walnut in the early 70s, and they had just passed that Coastal Commission. They started the Coastal Commission, and I happened to be home. I was working in this orchard, and I was sick, or I was home for some reason. And they started cutting down all the palm trees. And so I called up the city to see what was going on, and they weren't really sure. So I called the Coastal Commission. It just started, and they stopped it. And then they figured out later that the city was a nursery company had paid off somebody in the city so they could replant the street with maple trees. But anyway, that's been my only dealing with the city until this happened. They had that vote, like if you voted yes, it meant no. That was definitely a rigged deal. I think that should be done before. Everybody I've run into has been against it, but they all think it's over because of the rigged vote. I went to one meeting, unfortunately, the last meeting they had, for the people that were against the hotel, and it sounded to me, and I said it at the time, that the people that were running the show were actually, somebody had put them in, installed them. It was like a trick, and everybody was, thought that they were for it. They were kind of saying, oh, it's not going to be that bad, and these are the people that supposedly were against it. So anyway, I'm not a very good speaker, but I do know that the building's too high. Nobody wants the thing, and I really hope that the city council people, unfortunately, aren't even here. Obviously, they must have been paid off because most of their constituents don't want it, but I guess they all voted for it but one person. So anyway, that's my comment.
Thank you. Yes, come on up.
Hi, my name is Sean C. White. I live on Sandyland. I cross the intersection there probably 4 times a day, so I think about this issue constantly. I'm not very good with computers, so I have already learned a great deal just by attending the meeting today, and I will probably be contacting you personally because I'm not good at information gathering. But I will tell you that I stopped by the intersection this afternoon about 1:30 just to evaluate the space itself, to look at the tracks, to look at the trees, and to look at the terrain. And as I did, I saw from the marsh a heron flying towards me. And it flew at about 25 feet, and as it approached the eucalypti, I said, "Hey, buddy, you're going to have to fly a lot higher if they put that hotel in." I'm going to answer the rest of my questions on typed paper and send them to you. But I think that I hope you'll take this with great humility. I mean this. I want this project to be deferred, sent somewhere else. I think it's got consequences that we can't even foresee. And I hope that everybody will take all those considerations very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, please do contact me. That'd be great. Anyone else a minute or less, and then we'll get to people who have longer things to say.
My name is Cheryl Lake, and I live on 7th Street, about a block and a half from the train station. And parking's getting worse daily. Since the new project, which is wonderful, on Linden Street has come in, parking is just insane. Parking is very, very crowded. And I know it's limited time, but as well as many other things people are saying, it's just not a good fit for the neighborhood. I've been there 15 years, and I know a few neighbors that have been there as lifers. I have a handicapped neighbor that has asked me to speak up. It's not a good fit for the neighborhood. It's too much. There's no parking. There's a lot going on already, so I just want to say, I don't think it's a good fit. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Lake. 1 minute or less, anybody? Yes, come on up.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for the time. My name is Pedro. I work with the Western States Regional Council of Carpenters. And I'm here to address the impacts regarding schools and skilled and trained opportunities. We're in the season where everybody graduates. We've been getting a lot of students that come to our training facility. Not a lot of kids have the smarts to go to a university or college, so they turn into the trades for a different avenue. And with that, I hope that the city requires the project to be built with contractors that will hire locally, pay a prevailing wage, utilizing apprentices from state-accredited training programs. Recently, the state of California reiterated a commitment towards encouraging workforce development and housing affordability through the Affordable Housing and High Roads Jobs Act of 2022, otherwise known as Assembly Bill 2011, which requires projects to pay workers a prevailing wage and hire from state-accredited apprenticeship programs for projects meeting certain sightings, affordability, and development and standards. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Yes, come on up.
Hello, my name is Susan Mayhew. I wasn't planning to speak today at all, but I do want to tell you that every time I drive by, every time I hear the term Surfliner Inn, I cringe with dread. My comments do affect the environment, and the environment of Carpinteria, to me, is its nature, its wildlife, its beauty, its ocean, its salt marsh, the mountain views. That is Carpinteria. A city with a boutique hotel will have guests that weren't intended to absorbing that nature, and I worry it'll change Carpinteria. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mayhew. Anyone on Zoom that has a quick comment, raise your hand.
I don't have anyone.
Okay. Okay, and one last call for anybody who has like a 1-minute comment. Otherwise, I guess we'll move on to if you think your comments would fit into 3 minutes. Then yes, come on up, Ms. Patch.
Uh-oh, she already knows me. Hi, my name is Lisa Patch. I lived on Ash for the last 33 years, just recently moved, between Sandyland 3rd, and I have walked that beach area for probably 2,000 or 3,000 times. So my concerns are, number one, density. Right now, we currently, per the city, have 218 short-term rentals, licenses going from 2 people up to 20 people per license. We also have 216 campsites with a maximum of 6 people per site. That means we can easily accommodate over 2,600 people daily just in the beach area. We don't need 36 more rooms. Second, your proposed parking lot. There is a lack of safe access with proposed Lot 4. There is one combined entrance and exit between a very busy Spot Burgers, and if you go down there on any weekend in the summer, the line goes from the Spot to the railroad tracks and an active railroad. There's a safety issue as well with only one access point on Linden in case there is an emergency. I had to call my principal in Ojai several times and say I couldn't get to school because I could not get across the tracks. The train was on them. There's a lack of flow in the parking lot. It is the only proposed city downtown lot that has one way in and one way out. There is no turnaround access. What happens with an RV who pulls in not being aware, or in case of I have friends who have an accessibility van for their child that's in a wheelchair. It is not wide enough, and the turnaround is not sufficient. Of course, it's only access being on Linden, where all of our other downtown accesses, our parkings have an access on a side street as well. Your plan shows only 10 combined parking spots between the 2 lots when you take out the bike spots for the hotel. That's not enough. We get a lot more than that. As far as environmental impact, if you talk about car exhaust, that's negative air quality when we add an additional 93 spots. Noise and light pollution, I know that they have lights that are going to be down, but for people that live backing that area, it's not going to be good enough. And also, we have an active salt marsh that is on a migratory birds path. Those are right in their path to go to the salt marsh. It is also the only proposed city lot who would have is in an identified by the city residential area. I do have some alternatives that I have in my printed letter for you, but basically wrong proposal, wrong location for the hotel, and I do have some questions a friend sent to me. She asked, where is the report about cumulative impacts? Where are the reports about the alternative locations, and where is the no project alternative? So if that can be provided, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to answer those kinds of quick clarifying questions. All of that will be in the draft EIR, which we are going to be preparing after the NOP period is over. So it will address cumulative impacts. It will have the no project alternative as well as other reasonable range of other reduced alternatives. And what else was it?
I think that was it.
Okay.
The alternatives.
Yes, great. Thank you.
Will we be able?
Come on up to the mic and ask your question, no problem.
You said your report that Lisa requested will be available, but after the comment period would be closed.
So it will have its own comment period, because, thank you for clarifying that too. So the full environmental impact report, it's going to be rather lengthy, so we need a few months to pull it all together. It'll probably be this fall, and that will open up a 45-day comment period for you all to see what we analyzed. And then we will also have another meeting during that comment period, which will also have the Environmental Review Committee body there as well. So it'll be very much like this. but it'll be while the full impact report is out for your review. And so that's why this is so important, is so that we make sure we're capturing everything to put into that report. So thank you for clarifying that. Come on up.
Good evening, Gail Marshall here. So this is no ordinary project. This is an attempt by the city to turn city-owned property into a revenue producer. So my first and biggest concern is for the project description and how we're able to ascertain the highest and best use for this city-owned property through this process. In other words, normally a project, well, I'm not, no, I think you understand what I'm saying. After that initial question, then as to the hotel as one use for the property, here are my concerns. I'll start off with traffic and noise. This development will cause a sea change in traffic and noise and parking on Carpinteria Avenue, 5th Street, Elm Avenue, Dorrance Way, and that entire neighborhood area. This change will result in a reduced quality of life for all those living in these neighborhoods. Staff coming and going, delivery trucks arriving and departing, service vehicles arriving and departing, guests coming and going. It's a fiction that the hotel will house people stepping off the train. Restaurant patrons, bar patrons, events attendees, including live music, which we've all heard a lot about that in the last couple of years, and rideshare. Housing. Due to the above-mentioned impacts of a hotel on this property, the adjacent neighborhoods already mentioned will suffer. We need to be protecting these existing neighborhoods, not burdening them with development of this type. Additionally, this project creates the need for more lower-income housing. It creates low-paying jobs, which creates a need for low-income housing. In order to stay on the page of keeping Carpinteria, you need to carefully consider maintaining our existing neighborhoods and making sure we are providing housing affordability. Housing affordability that will allow the city of Carpinteria to fill all those vacant positions. Is it a hotel? Is that what Carpinteria needs? I don't think so. I think Carpinteria needs to protect its existing housing supply, and if the city is considering partnerships, it should be considering partnerships with housing providers on any city-controlled property. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Amrita.
Good evening, Amrita Sam. I have been a Carpinteria resident and homeowner for the last 34 years. Last week, 3 well-informed Carpinteria residents told me that the city of Carpinteria will approve the proposed Surfliner Inn and the new parking lot no matter what the public comments or analysis yields as far as environmental impacts. I want to believe that integrity, transparency, and honesty still exist at this time and in Carpinteria. The city sends requests for our input about goals and priorities, as they did this last week in the city newsletter. Will they ignore our comments as usual or incorporate them into their goals? I still have the goals I wrote last year. None of them were incorporated. Are potential tourist dollars more important to the city than what the residents and taxpayers who live here need and want? Is the city mission statement still valid to encourage public participation in the decision-making process? Are the city decision makers aware that we don't want to become like other commercialized communities in Southern California? Is anyone listening? The proposed hotel location and bulk destroys the gateway to our downtown beach area going south and going north to the panoramic mountain views now available to all. Additionally, it also affects the feel of our downtown. No longer will there be a feeling of expansiveness and openness. Do we need another hotel that will destroy the expansive mountain views, remove mature trees, cause congestion, noise, pollution, use of our scarce water supply, create safety issues, and ruin the uniqueness and qualities of our small beach town, including all of their environmental impacts? Why do tourists come here? Why do we live here? In addition, the proposed new parking lot is a disaster waiting to happen from the standpoint of safety issues, drainage issues, traffic, size, location, entrance, and exit. I plan to send in additional comments before the deadline. Hopefully, all alternatives will be considered, including a no project alternative. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up. And then Mike. Welcome.
Mindy, Brian, Nick, all of you. Fred Shaw. My concern tonight, I have several with the hotel itself, but my concern tonight, as someone who's lived for over 25 years off of Dorrance, is the traffic impact of a parking lot for there. And I think there's possible alternatives. I think the parking lot for where it would be placed right now, originally, I believe our past Parks and Rec director, Matt Roberts, had actually designed it to be a park, a strolling park with benches and stuff like that. And certainly, I think that would be a good use of that property with the restrooms located there rather than where they are now. But I think a possible alternative would be to acquire the piece of property between Ash and Holly, well, actually the end of the community garden, and use that as parking lot 4. You would fence off the 10 feet that's required by the railroad, but still have plenty of room in that block and a half to have a lot of parking, and that way you could keep that parking all exiting and entering off 5th Street, Holly, and Ash, rather than that parking lot entering and exiting right in the middle of 5th and Dorrance. If you live on Dorrance or anywhere in the beach area, the first thing you're going to notice is even with those wonderful stop signs that we've gotten during the summer or busy times, you could be there 5 minutes just waiting to turn left onto Linden. And the same thing applies to 5th Street. And then you've got the railroad tracks between them. And then to add a parking lot that's exiting in that same 100-yard space between Dorrance and 5th Street would just be chaotic whenever it gets busy, which, as we know, during the summer, parking along in the beach area is pretty crazy, pretty chaotic. So that would just make it even more difficult. So I would suggest we at least look at that property between Ash and Holly, west of the community garden, north of the railroad tracks, as a possible parking lot 4, rather than what is currently suggested here in the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Mike.
Hi. Good evening. I'm Mike Wondolowski, president of Carpinteria Valley Association. One of the most critical parts of any NOP is the project description. It's a starting point for environmental review to be performed. A clear statement of the project's objectives and underlying purpose is critical in developing a reasonable range of alternatives. The project description in this NOP effectively says the purpose of the project is to build a hotel. This isn't a normal project where a property owner proposes to build something on their property. Rather, in this case, the city of Carpinteria proactively investigated ways to increase city revenue and came up with the idea of leasing some of its land for a hotel. So the real purpose of the project is to generate net revenue to the city. The hotel is one possible way to do that. Therefore, to analyze how the proposal meets the real purpose of the project, the scope of analysis of the draft EIR must include comprehensive analysis of both revenue generated and expenses the city incurs because of the project. The project revenue has been studied, and it's understood that analysis must be updated to make it current. However, on the expense side, there's a number of areas to consider that have not received much attention to date. I want to highlight just one major area that I have not heard seriously discussed with respect to this project. The NOP states there'll be 10 to 11 employees per shift, 3 shifts a day, obviously 7 days a week. That comes out to a minimum of 42 full-time employee equivalents. The most recent Carpinteria Valley Economic Profile lists hotel and food services job sector as dead last in average salary among all 18 job sectors. the average salary being only 5% over minimum wage at the time of the report. Based on minimum wage this year, that would be a little under $35,000 a year. Two-income household with that salary is still below the present very low income limit for housing locally. That means the very real effect of building this project is increasing our deficit of affordable housing. Such below market rate housing can only be built with public subsidy. Estimates vary for the cost of this. Couple data points. HUD, Housing and Urban Development nationally, spends an average of $232,000 per unit of affordable housing. More representative of our area, in a report from 2019, in the Bay Area, average construction cost of new below market housing is over $664,000 per unit. And obviously likely more now, 6 years later. So 42 full-time employees, all living two-income households, would need 21 subsidized units, costing something like $14 million to build. $14 million. That's an expense that has to be subtracted from the revenue the city gets for this project. And that would analyze the net revenue, which obviously is the real purpose of the project. So in summary, the project description must be updated to reflect the real purpose is to generate net revenue to the city, and two, to analyze how the proposal meets that project purpose. The scope of analysis must include a comprehensive analysis of both revenue and projected expenses to the city of developing the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, come on up.
Hi, my name's Amy Orozco. I live in the downtown T. I echo most of the comments made here, but something I would like to see in the EIR, it involves the noise and the water. I can't imagine what a freight train's going to sound like in the middle of the night going through the beach neighborhood with a building serving as a bounce back. Yes. I would like to see the tables or statistics, how it's figured out, I don't know, but how a building will heighten the noise. And I'd also like to see a sampling of Carpinteria residents who have been affected by the 101 sound walls, where now it's like an amphitheater in their backyard. The other thing I'd like to see some specifics on water. Water's a big issue here. How much water will be used by a 36-room hotel? What does that mean? How often is laundry done? And maybe it can be compared to other hotel usage or other hotels in town usage. So I'd like to see, some specifics like that. And I'll save my other commentary for writing you. I'll write them out. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Yes, come on up.
Hello, my name's Kirk Connolly. I live on Dorrance and Elm, but I also have a rental house that comes at the end of Elm that is probably the most effective of any property around. That will be the exit for the parking lot. And they say that there's an emergency gate and that would only be open for an emergency, but I think in practice what will happen is every time they have an avocado festival or a big event, this thing will be opened. And then it doesn't just affect me, it affects the apartments across the street, it affects the whole downtown beach neighborhood. And I don't know why we should be the brunt of this just so that the hotel can be built. The other problem I have is, like most or a lot of old beach neighborhood homes, I'm built at ground level, slab at ground level. Once the ground gets saturated, the water level starts rising. Now you're building a parking lot, it's got It's got a 22,000 square feet of pervious pavers, but when you take the overall scope, and if you look at the drainage plan, a significant amount of water is going to come out onto Elm. We don't have good drainage there, and we have even less drainage now that the city has paved Dorrance, and they put a crown on it, creating a nice little dam. So we get a lake there. And once the ground becomes saturated and you add the water coming from the parking lot, that house is going to become flooded. And that's a big concern to me. And the other thing I'd like to say is I like the property just the way it is. We leased it from the railroad for 15 years. I maintained it. I know the wildlife that's there. There's possums, skunks, raccoons, blue herons go after the gophers, lots of reptiles. And right now we have a wandering, nice 10-foot wide gravel walkway. Even though it's not a planned park, everybody loves it. They ride their bikes, they can walk their dogs, and that's going to be replaced by a parking lot with a 5-foot wide path. You're not going to be walking dogs and having bikes pass in the same 5-foot wide lot. 5-foot wide pathway, I don't think that's a standard for any recreational type of pathway. So I do hope this does not get built. Thank you.
Thank you. Forgive me for a second, another announcement that I just realized a lot of you are on the interested parties list, and so you'll get a direct email from me about all the next steps, but some of you are not, so please do email me if you want to be on the list to get all the emails about the next steps and when the EIR is available and everything. Any more 3-minute comments? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Marla Daly. I live at 4892 Dorrance Way. And where is Judge Judy when you need her? I'd like her to weigh in on what is going to happen to many of us who live in the downtown beach neighborhood with this proposed hotel and parking lot. We live against a wildlife corridor. If you would please put the slide up that shows the one that you had at the very beginning. The one that shows yeah, there, that one's fine. What many of you, probably most of you, are not aware of is that, quote, new parking lot 4 area, that's a wildlife corridor. And we have wildlife that transits from the slough over to the park, and they depend upon that. We have seen coyotes, bobcats, raccoons, possums. We have seen great blue herons, that fish, I was going to say, for gophers in the parking lot. And it's very important that we support our wildlife. There is no parking lot that touches a private home right now in Carpinteria. You are subjecting us to a horror beyond horrors for our quality of life. Look at your existing parking lots. They face public streets and buildings. They do not touch private homes. Please don't start that. Do not subject those of us, you see all the private homes in the parking lot 4 there, that will be subjected to that. That's not okay. You want to put in a rooftop swimming pool, a rooftop bar? Where do you think that noise is going to carry? It's going to carry 75 feet across that corridor right into our bedroom. That's not okay. I don't want to have to spend every night listening to drunks yelling and people getting married and having parties and cheering, and if they have a rooftop swimming pool and a bar up there splashing and reveling. That's not okay. That destroys the quality of life and the very reason that we moved here to Carpinteria. And I would like to say that you should have, and maybe Nick can dig it up, you should have a 3-ring binder with signatures of over 1,000 people in Carpinteria who signed a petition started by Judy Mulford to not allow this development to proceed. Judy has since died, but that binder was submitted to Matt Roberts with all of the hundreds and hundreds of letters to the editor that people wrote who live in that neighborhood. So I think my time is up. Please do not allow the parking lot 4 to be put in that space. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take a second now to ask if anyone on Zoom has a 3-minute comment, if they'd like to raise their hand.
We have 10 now. People on Zoom, if you'd like to raise your hand, we're ready.
Quiet listeners over there on Zoom. All right, in the audience, anyone else that would have 3 minutes? Yes, go ahead. Oh, sorry, in the blue first, and then you.
Hi, my name is Pilar. I live on 5th Street. So when I first looked at this, sorry, I'm new to the game here, late to the game. The main thing that stood out was that there's a restaurant for a 35-room hotel, which seems a really weird ratio, because I've been in this business for a long time. To have a restaurant for such a small property is seems like overkill, because restaurants make a ginormous mess. They affect air quality in regards to smoke and soot and smells and grease. In regards to water usage, it's very, very high water usage just for the restaurant. Again, the restaurant requires its own plumbing for the grease trap. So that grease trap is just the nastiest thing in the world. But every restaurant requires one for good reason, to catch all of the junk that goes through. And again, it just smells really, really bad. And then all of the trucks coming and going just for the restaurant, including the guy who cleans said grease trap. They have to come at least once a month. But there's the daily deliveries of dry goods, the fish guy, the meat guy, the produce guy, the trash, the laundry. Just the food and beverage needs alone required, or it's going to add a great amount of environmental mess to this, in my opinion. Not to mention the noise of the patio that they just mentioned. And all of this, restaurants are famously low for their profit margin. So if the city plans to make any money off that, they should adjust. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, now, yeah, there you go.
Thank you very much. My name is Kristen Larson. I am an environmental attorney with more than 25 years experience, primarily assisting Fortune 500 companies develop their businesses and their properties in environmentally compliant manner. I've handled dozens of CEQA and NEPA reviews. While I am indeed an dyed-in-the-wool tree hugger, I am also considered a go-to resource by developers because TELUS Law Group, my law firm, does not view all developments as inherently bad. When done appropriately and responsibly with consideration for natural resources and cultural values, development can be a very positive thing. Our law firm has identified several aspects of this preliminary plan that must be addressed via CEQA, the CEQA process. But before identifying them, I'd like to set the table a little bit. I think there's probably several people here in the public that have never been part of a CEQA process before. And I think that it's really important that everybody here knows that CEQA is a law that allows you, all of you, to hold your public officials accountable. Your elected officials should be protecting your interests, not those of the commercial developer. Under CEQA, you have a powerful influence on the outcome. So stay with it, stay involved, whether you are in favor or against some or all of this project. For today's meeting, I would like to identify 3 elements, issues and solutions, as you've requested, of the proposed project that must be incorporated into the CEQA review, because to ignore them would constitute an incomplete review pursuant to CEQA. My number 1 issue that I'd like to identify today is the existence, or more importantly, the non-existence of subterranean parking as part of any preliminary design review that I have seen. Why is that? In virtually every commercial redevelopment project our firm has been involved with, from San Diego to San Francisco in the past 10 years, and there has been dozens and dozens of them, they all have involved subterranean parking. And why is that? Well, the vast majority of these sites are in prime coastal areas, just like this one, where paved surface parking would never be permitted because of the beauty and importance of land in these zones. It seems unconscionable that you would pave over any section of land in our coastal area. The cost and benefits of creating or allowing vast stretches of hot, impervious asphalt do not support creating it in this case. The developer may cry that the cost of including 2 levels of subterranean parking is too high or it is too hard. They will say that doing this will intercept the water table, but believe me, based on many, many projects in very similar settings, this is not an obstacle. If the city requires subterranean parking as a condition of the project, the developers will figure out a way how to include it. We have seen it time and time again. Engineering methods and technology most definitely exist to permit and include that approach here. If the cost of requiring subterranean parking is incorporated, it's possible that the project may no longer be viable. But why should the developer shift the cost to the public, the owners of this land? Shifting impacts in this way is called an externalizing impacts of a project and placing them on the public's shoulders. This is not right, and it certainly does not comport with good planning practices that we have seen in projects, as I said. And even in the Funk Zone right now, there's a hotel that's being considered, and they are required to use subterranean parking. So I feel that that is a huge blank in the planning process, which I have seen not addressed at all. So we are urging the city to include that. Parking lot for emergency exit onto Elm Street. As many of the speakers before me have identified, this is a big concern. We view the quote emergency outlet as a camel's nose under the tent. And project that with a fair degree of certainty that if it is allowed, it will be pressed into use regularly because of the pressures placed on this parking lot. Use of this outlet onto Elm will result in severe impacts to the residents in this quiet neighborhood. The existence of a ramp, as Kurt Conley has mentioned, will also, I think, most definitely result in stormwater runoff and the creation of floods in those residents. The noise and lighting right up against residents is also something that will be, I think, severe, as is the impact to wildlife and the open space. None of these negative impacts will exist if the hotel is required to incorporate subterranean parking, which will eliminate or greatly reduce the need for this lot. We strongly urge the city to require developers to shoulder the costs for parking by requiring it to be underneath the hotel. The last issue that we want to highlight at this point is the existence or the potential existence of underground contamination in this area. If you look into GeoTracker or any of the other public databases available to anybody in this room, that whole 2 to 3 block area around the surfliner has experienced historic spills of hazardous materials. And that they were most likely not fully cleaned up. The standards today are much stricter, especially for volatile organics, which could cause indoor air impacts into the hotel. And this brings me back to the subterranean parking as a solution. When developers are required to put in subterranean parking, they have to excavate. And they would, if there is contamination in this area, the city and all of the public would benefit because the developers would be cleaning up this legacy contamination. So it would be a win-win for the city as well as the public. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Ms. Larson. In the mask.
Mindy, we have one person on Zoom who has their hand raised.
Great. Let's hear from this gentleman, and then we'll go to Zoom.
Hi, Stephen Marcus, and I live on 3rd Street. Carpinteria's zoning map identifies the proposed parking lot 4 as a recreation district. According to Webster's dictionary, recreation is defined as the refreshment of strength and spirits after work or worry, or a way of refreshing mind or body through amusement or diversion. It encompasses activities that provide enjoyment and relaxation, whether physical, social, intellectual, creative, or spiritual. How or why does a public parking lot become an element in a recreation district? It doesn't belong. Carpinteria's residential design guidelines for the beach neighborhood note the development review process is a creative and collaborative process designed to protect and preserve the natural historic charm and beauty of the city through careful review of proposed development. This process is important because the city of Carpinteria maintains much of its small beach community image within the development of its beach neighborhood. It is the intent of the general plan and the coastal plan policies included in the community design element of the general plan to uphold this image. The public can use these guidelines as a measure of whether a proposed project is appropriate. DG-19, whenever possible, carports and parking lots should be located out of view from the public realm. There is no public parking lot in Carpinteria that abuts residential properties. Simply put, there should not be a public parking lot with EV charging stations, a public restroom abutting or infecting the beach neighborhood, a residential zone. Why? A conjunctive, shared daily spaces, public parking lot with public EV charging stations, which are a business, and a public restroom in a zoned residential area is clearly non-compatible. Residential areas are just for what they are named for, residences. Contextual compatibility of development is of foremost importance and underlies the purpose of the city's design guidelines. Context is considered to be the setting in which a structure or service area or business exists, including the project site, properties immediately adjacent to a project site, and the larger surrounding neighborhood. A conjunctive parking lot with public EV charging stations and a public restroom abutting residences clearly falls out of contextual compatibility for the beach neighborhood. To be clear, there is not a resident who welcomes a massive public parking lot with public EV charging stations and a public restroom abutting their residential property, whether the occupants rent or own. Let's list the ways the residents will be negatively impacted. Public restrooms require routine and constant service to maintain any degree of cleanliness. The proposed public restroom inside proposed parking lot 4 will push both the shoppers, diners, and drinkers outside of the downtown business T into a residential neighborhood or zone. It is objectionable for a restroom that primarily services a business district to be located within the residential beach neighborhood. 2, conjunctive parking means that there will be constant movement on the lot, day and night. The addition of 17 EV parking spaces will create a whole new and unwanted business in the residential beach neighborhood. The charging stations will be used by travelers, guests, and residents. 4, public EV charging stations, a business, do not belong in a residential community. 5, some claim there will only be noise in the daytime. Noise only in the daytime is not okay and far from reality. Remember, this is presented as a conjunctive public parking lot, which means day and night. 6, cars will be coming and going throughout the day and evening. Exhaust fumes and unwanted noise will leach into the abutting residences. 7, at night, car headlights will be present and possibly shine into the abutting residences. 8, parking lots must be well lit. Abutting residences will be victims of unwanted light pollution, illuminating the parking lot and shining into their homes. 9, the proposed parking lot will attract visitors frequenting the local bars and restaurants in the downtown business T, becoming a noise nuisance when they depart. I witnessed this vibrant departure activity, especially during the spring and summer months, dare I say loud and impaired. 10, the existing parking lot 3 has commercial vehicles from local businesses using it for overnight parking or vehicle storage. Dare we say blight? The commercial vehicle parking will spill over into the proposed parking lot number 4 because the hotel will usher them away from the public parking on 5th Street. Carpinteria has no means of enforcement to control this parking abuse. Let's list the way visitors and locals will be negatively impacted by the reconfiguration of the Linden to Holly Trail. The city will lose the beautiful walking path that is a continuation of the bluffs, the campground, and the Linden Field Walk. 2, the Linden to Holly Trail will be reduced to a 5-foot width. This is not an acceptable width to accommodate pedestrians, parents with children, e-bikes, push bikes, residents, and visitors walking with pets. 3, the newly configured Linden to Holly Trail and the northerly handicap parking share the same space. In other words, the handicap setbacks overlap with the 5-foot walking Linden to Holly Trail at Linden Avenue. Again, Carpinteria does not provide any enforcement with regards to e-bikes, push bikes, and skateboards written on sidewalks now. 4, the people using the trail will be subjected to exhaust fumes, hardly the walk in fresh air that is now enjoyed. Subterranean parking is a solution if the hotel goes through, and I think is a wise choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Markison. Let's go to our person on Zoom, and then we'll come back again to the audience.
Good evening. This is Lorraine McIntyre. I just want to say aloha from Hawaii, and I wanted to break the tension in the room by thanking the city for its transparency through this whole process. And I trust that the consulting firm that was hired to prepare the EIR has the qualifications to do a very fine report. And that's what I wanted to say. Mahalo.
Thank you, Ms. McIntyre. Was there any other raised hands there, Brett?
No, not at this time.
Okay.
My name is Maria. I'd like to say I was very, very glad to be a part of this, to find out exactly what people have in mind to do, whether they know it's right or wrong.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be a part of this too and to hear from all of you. This is very helpful. We're getting really good comments here. Who else would like to speak next in the 3-minute range? Or yes, come on up, Mr. O'Connor.
Good evening, staff. You're doing a good job. I've got 4 comments to make, and I'll try to keep it within the confines of the intent of this review. One is around the utilities concern that would be part of the EIR, and that is power poles. Would like to urge that the developer be required to drop not just the power lines that feed from the pole to the project, but drop the poles themselves. There are existing poles on that property and in the parking lot, and I think they should all go. Would encourage that that be a requirement. Under hazards in transportation, we talked about this in previous reviews, the southeast corner at the Amtrak platform egress, where the crossing arm is. There's some design changes happening with Union Pacific and Amtrak along that platform. So got to assume that that would be a big part of the review and the EIR process to understand the impacts of that redesign. Further to the land use and the relationship to the Amtrak platform, it seems that there should be a pretty close coordination on the setbacks and the easement impacts of not just the hotel property, but the change in the platform design. You know, that railroad track has certainly a myriad of requirements for transportation that could range from commercial to, you know, for all we know, national security needs to move things around in a time of need. And with the hotel, the presumption of the design of the hotel is 0 setback, and that's a commercial allowance, as I understand it. And it just seems, you know, that is not a commercial relationship between the platform and the hotel. So I would hope that there'd be some serious looks at that setback, so close to the tracks. And the last point, 4th point, is about process. The report for this meeting highlights that Lot 4 will be constructed first before the hotel construction begins. It's not clear to me that the Lot 4 is a separate project or not. That's been brought up a number of times. Is Lot 4 part of the EIR? Is it part of the hotel design? Is it a capital improvement project? There seems to be a lot of ambiguity around that.
Yes, yes, and yes.
And so my concern is whether the process is appropriate from a legal standpoint in the sequence that you're doing it. What may be legally appropriate may not be appropriate for you know, the interpretation of the public. I think it feels like Lot 4 is fait accompli. That because we're going through this process, you know, so thoroughly around the hotel with Lot 4, without resolving all the issues of Lot 4, it gives the impression that it's just going to happen. So I would encourage you, whether it's legally compliant or not, that doing the right thing isn't always necessarily in line with the rules. Last comment about all of that. An alternative for Lot 4 is flip it with the garden. Move the garden to Lot 4, move Lot 4 to the garden. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else have about a 3-minute comment? And if not, we'll go to 5-minute comments. From the back, yes.
Hi, I'm Gary Campopiano. I've lived here since 1970. The Surfliner Hotel project was the pipe dream of one very influential former city employee. When the city asked developers to submit ideas, none came forward with a proposal. Somebody then went begging and apparently found a developer who would submit an idea for a much larger project than the city was originally looking for. The composition and the attitudes of council has changed since then. At that time, the city was running out of money and thought taking public land and removing a tasteful parking lot, cutting down mature trees, and paving over more public land was a way out. This path, in my opinion, leads to a bad outcome. Oxnard, Ventura, Santa Maria are examples of cities that attempted to build their way out of debt. Carpinteria hired more and more people that they needed to review proposals, answer questions, write minutes, calendars, staff reports, conduct inspections, and all of the other jobs that you all do. They had to pay consultants and attorneys to write legal documents, review plans, etc., which created backlog and more expenses. My wife and I would suggest that instead of approving a new hotel and another parking lot, the city should charge for parking. This would discourage many of Carpinteria's multi-car individuals and generate funds for the city. Professor Donald Shoup, UCLA, in his book, The High Cost of Free Parking, stated, "Free parking makes parking and driving worse. The low cost creates a scarcity of spaces that leads people to spend time and fuel circling blocks in misery." Following are some of the problems created by the hotel and parking lot proposals. Aesthetics. The size and scale of the hotel building is out of scale with the neighborhood and will block significant mountain views, one of Carpinteria's very important resources as protected in our general plan. Removal of mature trees will change the small town landscaped shaded parking in this very important lot. The front of the hotel sticks out into the Linden sidewalk, crowding an important view corridor and creating a safety hazard. People crossing the tracks there, going to the park or the spot, cars, strollers, and trains increases the chances of an accident. If the building was moved west on the lot, the feeling of an urban open space and gateway mountain vista leading to the downtown could be helpful. However, we support the no project alternative. Air quality issues. The transportation study for the hotel does not reference new car trips that would be generated. Employees and guests, front desk personnel, housekeeping, dishwashers, chefs, servers, maintenance people may be driving, walking, riding a bike, or riding the train. Employees most likely will be coming 20 to 40 miles to and from a more affordable community to the north or south. The air pollution created would add to Santa Barbara County's air quality. This much traffic will add to the county's pollution problem. We think that a professional should do the analysis of this, not the developer. The developer might mitigate some of this negative result by reducing the hotel size or providing housing for some employees. The developer could also provide annual Amtrak passes for employees. However, we still support the no hotel alternative. Utilities, service, and services systems. Carpinteria County Water District is a utility that doesn't have the resources to service this project. I know that they signed off on the project, but that is simply the district rubber stamping every application submitted. 40 years ago, the district was going to solve Carpinteria's water shortage by purchasing water from the state aqueduct. Well, that didn't work in times of drought. The latest solution for our water district's deficit is to build the toilet-to-tap CAP project without conducting an election to find the desires of the citizens. The only thing that the taxpayers can argue is whether they pay annually or monthly. Carpinteria's groundwater basins are overdrafted. The state is just beginning an attempt to monitor local wells that are pumping the water. The World Meteorological Organization reported recently that Earth is highly likely to keep shattering temperature records in the next few years, driving fiercer droughts. About hazards, the projects proposed are within Carpinteria's tsunami zone. That seems risky. The design and location of parking lot 4 creates a safety issue at a busy intersection and railroad crossing. One way in and out of a dead-end parking lot will result in accidents and possibly injuries. A problem with the plan is the congestion of cars with people, bikes, strollers, e-bikes, and trains at the point where Linden Avenue crosses the track. Move the hotel away from this crowded intersection. I understand that there are underground tanks where parking lot 4 is proposed, and they are leaking. The public should know what is in these tanks and if this is something that may pollute our groundwater. About noise, railroad train horns honking day and night don't seem to mix with hotel guests. Rooftop music will bother neighbors. The proposed parking lot will abut residences, and the automobile noise and loud users of the lot will disturb homeowners. Thank you for your time in serving Carpinteria.
Thank you, Mr. Campopiano. I think we're in the 5-minute range of comments. So we've got a taker up here.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ariana Katovich. I'm an associate attorney with Telus Law Group representing Marla Daly and Kirk Connolly, who live, as they mentioned, directly adjacent to this project, putting their property in the neighborhood at ground zero for the impacts. We're worried about the overall impact of this project to overwhelm that property, the surrounding neighborhood, and really essentially set up a permanent conflict between the neighborhood and this development. Traffic and parking studies should be done in peak periods and to completely understand post-pandemic use and the impacts of other downtown revitalization developments and the anticipated use of parking lot 4 on the ocean side of the tracks may make it a more popular parking lot than one that is behind what will seem like a private hotel on a private piece of property. And also, just intuitively, as someone who goes to the beach in Carpinteria, having a parking lot on the ocean side of the tracks, I think, would make it more desirable for anyone to park and visit the beach. So I think that parking studies need to also look at future projected use. The emergency access directly impacts our client's property, and we want to understand what constitutes an emergency for access purposes, what happens if the parking lot is consistently full, and at what point does emergency access become available, how emergency use will be enforced by the city, in what event, if any, will emergency access become regular permanent access, and at what point might that access constitute a regulatory taking if made a regular exit onto Elm. Our clients are additionally concerned about the direct, indirect, and cumulative impacts of lighting, noise, runoff, air pollution, and greenhouse gas emissions. Cumulative impacts, of course, include things that our clients have touched on, not just the hotel use, restaurant use, pool use, parking, bathrooms, electric vehicle charging, the needs of staff, and so on. There's also significant concern about the construction impacts, noise, dust, and vibration on local ecological resources. The EIR should include wildlife and vegetation studies, including endangered, threatened, migratory, and other special status species, wildlife movement corridors, the dirt parking lot that we see as a potential lifeline for wildlife. We are concerned about watersheds, floodplains, wetland areas, visual resources and scenic values, compatibility with dark sky initiatives and goals to protect migratory birds and lighting on surrounding residents. The EIR traffic study should identify mitigation measures for all traffic circulation impacts on city and county roads. The EIR should also address impacts on, as I said, county, regional, city roadways. The cumulative scenario should be consistent with regional traffic model projections. The traffic analysis should include access points and analyze the impacts on county, city, and regional roadways. Excuse me. The EIR, we're worried about the way that all alternative impacts are evaluated, and so the EIR should evaluate a full range of project alternatives at the same level of detail as the proposed project. The EIR should evaluate project consistency with the Carpinteria General Plan and Carpinteria Local Coastal Program, and evaluate the project's consistency with the Coastal Act and consistency with land use zoning. The EAR should map all areas that would be potentially affected by the proposed project. Mitigation measures should be clearly measured, described, and achievable. And I think at that time, that concludes our comments. Of course, we'll be submitting more in writing, but we thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. Alan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to our guest, Brian. Appreciate you coming up. And I know you have another associate somewhere on the Zoom. Before I get into my specific comments, I'll read a statement. I just want to put some context around this because there's a lot of confusion as to the city has the authority to build on public land. Okay, there's government code for that. The city has the authority to enter into a 55-year commercial lease with a partner, okay? But there's one section of the government code, section 37395, among other government code sections, subject to the finding that the underlying property is not required for other city purposes. So I think what you've been hearing tonight, okay, there is a city purpose there right now, parking lot 3. And it is performing its functional duty for the city, for daily users, visitors, and so forth, okay? Because we have to remember, as part of the approval process for Linden Square, I believe they have to pay some type of fee for allocated spaces in parking lot 3. So I just want to put some context around that the authority is there, but if there is not another viable replacement for parking lot 3, I don't see from a legal perspective how the city feels. And again, our counsel's not here. I'm a layman, so I just wanted to bring that context in. Let me get down into a little more wonkiness about one specific issue, because I think you heard loud and clear about a lot of the general concerns under the environmental impact. I'm going to get down into the issue of under conjunctive parking, okay? Basically, building a hotel on a public parking lot would have dramatic adverse impacts to daily downtown and beach visitors, and to the impact of the downtown businesses on Linden. Okay? Tonight, I want to share one major adverse impact on the environment. We've heard the city depends on the concept of conjunctive parking. Another name, I believe, is shared daily spaces to determine the required parking supply that a city should have. And I believe in one of Nick's historical emails I got, I think it's planned at like 85% utilization. Examples of a shared daily spaces: a visitor comes for breakfast at East House, parks there, leaves. Another visitor comes to park to do some shopping in the afternoon with some friends visiting. Another comes in for a dinner later. The theory is they're all going to share the same parking space. Now, lo and behold, we have a hotel that's going to share, it's in the project, it's in the description, conjunctive parking. But the hotel, I believe, is a different mix of use. They're there for a 24-hour period. They could be there for stays from one night to multiple nights. Yes, they could stay there and during the day use their car to go up to Ojai or something like that. But the demand is much higher. There currently is no hotel in the city that uses a public parking lot, since their parking is on private land. But what's interesting is the Carpinteria Municipal Code requires hotels on private parcels to provide the minimum parking spaces of one for every guest room, and one space for every employee. So just taking the description, in the NOP, Surfline has 36 rooms with 17 to 19 employees. That's hotel, that's bar, that's restaurant. So they would need 53 to 55 needed spaces on private property. So just hold that number in your head, everybody. The applicant's own parking study by Associated Transportation Engineers had a peak shared hotel demand of 56 on weekdays and 54 on weekends. Pretty close. So I think that 50-something number from a hotel has some credence. But so here's a significant adverse impact for the current users of parking lot 3, which is daily downtown business and beach visitors. Okay, so when you factor in the demands of a hotel mix into the daily visitors, there is a dramatic reduction in the available spaces for daily visitors. Okay, now there's a little math here. I'll leave a copy of this, and I already sent this in with my comments to Mindy. Adding the spaces remaining in parking lot 3, the new 93 spaces, you get 139 spaces, okay? Which is, I think, 26 more than 113. So we see the staff reports say, oh, that's a benefit. It's not a benefit because you're bringing a mix of a hotel user into a conjunctive parking formula. Okay, so if you take 139 spaces, just minus at 50 or 55 on the demand of a hotel, okay, you're going to have a reduction of 29 spaces from what we currently have in parking lot 3. Okay? But parking lot 3 doesn't have any EV spaces in there now. And now we're going to build, what, 25? I don't know where that mix is between 3 or 4, but that's going to impact daily visitors who do not drive EV vehicles. Okay, so when you bring that in there, we're going to have 54 reduced spaces, what we currently have in parking lot 3. So I believe that's an environmental impact of significance here. And I don't think there's a mitigation to it because of the size and shape of what you have on the parcel where parking lot 4 is going. So I believe as part of the EIR process, the consultants will review all current parking studies. The last major city study was the Walker study. I think that was done in 2020. I believe the environmental secret says anything over 2 years should be brought current. I could be wrong there. I've been trying to come up the learning curve. I've been doing a lot of AI type of inquiries. So I really believe that the study needs to do a couple of things. Seasonal demands. The Walker study was done in October. Okay? So we need some seasonal demands during the summer and winter usage, i.e., high seasonal versus winter. We need to somehow factor in the demand of a hotel from a conjunctive type of a modeling. It's just too simple the way it's being done now. It's appropriate for the way it's being done now in the sense of what I described previously. A space will have a high probability of being shared daily. And then we talked about the new developments along Linden Avenue, Linden Square and the Palms. And to the applicant's credit, their study tried to add those impacts to the Walker study. Okay? So I really believe that the result, that this is just an incomplete environmental review. I'm not sure if that's the right phrase, Brian, but we need to relook at this Walker study. And, what's happening right now? We are in the summer season, so let's get on it. I think that's all. Thanks for the opportunity, guys.
Thank you so much, Alan. All right, who haven't we got to yet?
I have a question.
Please come on up and ask the question. And also, if there's anyone on Zoom who still wants to speak, please raise your hand on Zoom. Yes.
So I just got a text from a friend that cannot be here, and she said her husband works for Metrolink, and they are working right now to get an active Metrolink that goes from the El Rio portion where it stops currently, and it's planning to go all the way to Goleta, and they are going to be looking at needing extra parking in each of those spots for Metrolink. So when we're looking at parking, has Metrolink been considered? Because it's a fairly new, it's just the last couple months.
That's something we will look into, so thank you for bringing,
Okay.
we were aware of the Metrolink, but not so much that it would generate more parking needs, so we will add that, thank you. Any raised hands on Zoom, Brett? Okay. Anyone here that we haven't got to yet? Yes, come on up.
I just wanted to add one more comment about the parking. So if the hotel was built, there were 93 spaces in 4 and 46 spaces in parking lot 3. So this is a boutique hotel. So when people come, they expect to have a place to park. So even though those 46 spaces are supposed to be open for the public, the hotel is going to have to save them for themselves. They cannot have people come to a boutique hotel for hundreds of dollars a night and tell people, go find a place to park. So those 46 spaces are not going to be for the general public. They will be reserved for those 36 hotel rooms. So Alan very effectively described the shortage. The shortage is even worse than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Amrita.
I don't think anybody's brought up sea level rise, and there's a lot of research now on sea level rise, and the proposed location of the hotel as well as parking lot 4 are in the tsunami zone, as far as I know. I think that definitely needs to be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you. Marla.
I had a quick question, comment, thought, Marla Daly. What about the public garden parking? The people at the community garden park in the street. Aren't they going to, for how many plots are there, Nick? Maybe 85 plots there that are rented? Yeah, there's something like 85 people that rent plots in the community garden. Well, where are they going to park? Right now, they're parking up and down the streets. That's something that has to be figured into the calculations, it seems to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I also am worried about the parking. So here's my suggestion. The land from Carpinteria Avenue to the tracks on Dump Road, adjacent to the Arbor Verde Street residence, has been deemed uninhabitable. My proposal is you put a big city parking lot and a dog park there and provide a shuttle to downtown.
Along Dump Road?
Yeah. ProQuest used to have a shuttle.
Kurt, yes.
I don't remember the name of it, but it was brought up quite a while ago, I think Matt Roberts did, brought it up, about it's called Lorraine, or it was supposed to be a double track on that side of in that little space that the railroad is still retaining. And I don't know what kind of access they were planning, or if there was going to be any planned access from the south side of the tracks to the second track or not. So just something to throw out there.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? In particular, anyone that hasn't had a chance to speak yet? And any final questions or comments? Well, again, we're not the decision makers, but we got lots of great comments today. We're so appreciative. This is really going to help inform the environmental impact report. Like we said, that's going to come out likely in early fall. And please make sure you're on my list of interested parties that would like an email when it's available, as I will keep you posted. And what else, Brian? Anything else?
Nope, covered it all.
I think, again, thank you so much. And thank you all for being so courteous and so helpful. Really appreciate it. Have a great evening. It's still light out.
Yeah. We can go down for sunset.
In our beach neighborhood.
I so miss being able to just walk out my door and 2 minutes being at the beach. And we miss I know, but I don't find myself, I have to plan it now. You know, I moved to Rancho Granada Mobile Park. My mom moved up with me. We moved my dad to Ronzita's Memory Carrots and Sushi.